We've certainly been keeping our eyes on the TSX and seeing some nice performance up over 6% year to date. But let's also take a look at the Canadian dollar as well, and in particular get a Wall Street outlook on the Canadian dollar, particularly from JPMorgan. Joining us now for a look is Daniel Huey. He's the global FX strategist at JPMorgan. Daniel, great to be able to be with you. Thanks so much for joining us. And you really do have a bit of an out of consensus call on the Canadian dollar, really stemming from concerns surrounding NAFTA 2.0. What's the call here?
Yeah, well, we recently revised our forecasts. Earlier, we were looking at 130 mid-year, 126 year-end on a dollar CAD basis. We've moved that we've revised those forecasts. So now we're looking at a period of Canadian dollar weakness in the middle of the year. We're looking, our new targets are 135 on the Canadian dollar. That translates to about 74 cents on a CAD to dollar basis, before recovering a little bit at into the end of the year. And really, that forecast revision is taking into account our new expectations that the USMCA ratification process will not be an easy one. It will be one that probably will involve Trump using brinksmanship tactics, notifying his intention to withdraw from the existing NAFTA 1.0 simply as a tool of negotiation to force Congress to take up the issue of ratification and to ultimately pass it. We do think, our base case is that ultimately happens, but I think the path to get there may look scary and does warrant some risk premium and some depricing of Bank of Canada in the currency, and that's why we have it a little bit weaker from now. We do emphasize that this is not a consensus view that USMCA ratification will be a rocky one, but our discussions with Washington watchers, especially on the trade issue, to us does indicate that this is something that the market may be missing.
So I think that's a really important point. It was a great report that I read from you this morning, so thank you for that. And again, I want us to delve into some of these details a little bit more. You do think that President Trump is going to take this to brinkmanship, but let's back up a second. I believe that you think that that's going to be the case because you think that the Democrats are going to continue to delay NAFTA 2.0. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I mean, if there's anything that we've learned from watching Washington, D.C., really ever since the midterm elections, especially into the end of December, when we've stumbled into this shutdown showdown, which till now seems unresolved, it's that Congress, the new Democrat-led House, is not one that's prone to kind of compromise and getting things done, and it's more about kind of political fighting and seeing who wins and who loses. And so I think the read-through from the shutdown is that things that require a legislative process to get through next year, USMCA ratification is one of them, but there are other things that I think the market should look out for as well, including kind of the debt ceiling debate that has to happen later on this year. I think we should be getting a little bit more worried that that the politics gets in the way of things that everyone agrees should be done, and probably USMCA is one of these things that in principle everyone agrees, but when you put politics into the picture, I think Democrats do have an incentive to delay, do have an incentive to try to gain some concessions of what they want from the deal, perhaps a side letter on some of the labor issues that they've raised, and in turn Trump will want to play hardball tactics to try to force them to finally ratify this, so he gets his win heading into the 2020 presidential elections.
But the tactic that you do think that President Trump is going to use is that he's going to withdraw from USMCA.
Yeah, so the mechanics of this works like this. When you notify for a withdrawal, that sets a six-month countdown clock. So say he does this in May or June, triggers a withdrawal because perhaps the Democrats aren't tabling the ratification and trying to delay or ask for some sort of renegotiation. This will start what is effectively a 6-month cliff edge countdown timer. Not too much unlike what we're looking with Brexit, with that kind of cliff edge countdown timer. And then the dynamics is that either Congress goes ahead and ratifies the USMCA, so we have a new officially ratified trade agreement for the North American region, or the NAFTA pullout actually becomes actualized, and obviously, that's something that the market should be very worried about. We don't think it's a high chance that we actually pull out of NAFTA, but we do have a 60% chance that the dynamics within D.C. get to the point where Trump will have to rely on these tactics.
And just really curious in terms of the details underneath the surface, Daniel, the people that you talk to on the trade front, the trade file in D.C., what is it specifically that they've been indicating to you and your team that makes you concerned and or nervous about the fate of USMCA?
Well, I mean, it's simply that, if you're on the Democratic side, your thinking might be this, that, ratifying the USMCA does give Trump something to campaign on, a victory that he can say that he did in his first term. Delaying it indefinitely means that you just maintain the status quo. And it's that sort of dynamics that Trump needs to change, the dynamics that delay doesn't mean an ongoing status quo. And by triggering the withdrawal of the NAFTA, he forces a decision that there is no status quo. It's either out or ratification of the USMCA. So again, I think we need to view this through a political lens. And I think what we're seeing in D.C. right now kind of gives a lot of insight into how these things may kind of dominate the narrative on on what happens with these things that Congress has to deal with. Congress has to fund the government. Eventually, Congress has to raise the debt ceiling, and Congress has to pass the USMCA for it to become law.
Understood. Daniel, good to catch up with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Daniel Hui. He's the global FX strategist over at JPMorgan.